Welcome. Let's begin our fourth class on the expected series before your UPSC prelims 2025. So here we would be discussing topics from environment. The first one is the Great Indian Bustard. Now there have been funds which have been allocated for recovery program for bustards. So Great Indian Bustards for a recovery period from 2024 to 2029, and the two species which are covered are the Great Indian Bustard and the Lesser Florican. Now India has four species, which is the Great Indian Bustard, Lesser Florican, Bengal Florican and McQueen Bustard. The efforts to recover these started in 2013, and then we have the national plan around it. So the status is Lesser Florican is a critically endangered with only 140 species. The idea is to address this issue at the earliest, mainly because of hunting, poaching, pesticides, collision with power lines, disruption of their migration routes have been some of the major issues that have been cited for their reduction. Right now, the conservation talks about the protection which prohibits hunting and providing them the highest level of protection under the endangered species in India. Now this Great Indian Bustard has a scientific name as Eridotus nigriceps, which is again important. Great Indian Bustard is again listed as critically endangered and has been under the IUCN Red List since 2011. It's also included in the Appendix 1 of the SITS agreement. Now, what are the measures that have been taken? National parks have been redesigned. Desert National Park and Nalia grasslands, which is the Lala Bustard Wildlife Sanctuary, have been established. The Species Recovery Program, which talks about recovering the wildlife habitat, bringing in situ conservation, talking about their captive breeding and then releasing them into wild, and training programs which include artificial incubation and insemination have been taken place at the National Avian Research Center, which is located in Abu Dhabi. The next is soil health. So International Conference on Soil Health took place in Morocco, and this talked about the World Soil Health Index. We also have the soil health cards in India. Now this, what we are talking about, is a global conference which took place, and this focused on how the soils are degrading, pinpointing the actual risk areas and the proper management. So identifying them across various soils and then demarcating which soil, what could be a right way or a right strategy was important. So for example, the World Atlas of Desertification says that 75% of the soil is degraded and it impacts 3.2 million people. That is supposed to rise to 90%. Again, in India, Desertification and Land Degradation Atlas talks about nearly 29% of the area under degraded land. So what are the factors, what are the vulnerability sections that must be taken into account, and then focusing on some of the practices. For example, the crop rotation is improper, how we can bring in better soil health through organic farming, focusing on the 12 parameters, which is the macro and the micronutrients, and as well as the physical parameters, which includes the electrical conductivity, pH or the organic carbon level, and improving the forest coverage. That is, increasing in the forest cover, enhancing in the soil quality has been important. The next is technologies to mitigate the disaster and reducing the risk. So AI, machine learning, IoT has been used for risk reduction. So the steps that are taken are basically mitigation, preparedness and response. Now there are various tools which have been used, and Sarthak is one of the important platforms that provides warning for any hazards. This could be heat waves, lightning, drought or flood, and then focusing in the same direction. Then there are again preparedness for technologies using VR, AR, social media platforms, chatbots, imageries, drones, social media, which create event simulations and help in better recovery and development. Right. The next is just transition. At COP25, India talked about a global climate justice, and this was a very important idea because this was a roundtable discussion on just transition. So focusing on labor rights, gender equality, implications of labor, in the global market. Protection and their workplace safety were some of the major concerns. So ILO focused on a just transition, which is a process to achieve an economy which is fair and inclusive for everyone with decent job opportunities. Also, it talks about shifting from high carbon to unsustainable, from high carbon to low carbon and sustainable economies, and this was recognized officially at COP26 in Scotland. So very very important concept of just transition. The needs under just transition, the obstacles are again to be referred to, correct? The next is the State of World's Forest Report 2024. Now this talks about accelerating forest solutions by innovation to reduce the rate of deforestation and increase the number of non-timber and timber regions in the region. So this innovation focuses on bringing in better economy, taking in better micronutrients in the soil, and any stress related aspect, that is the climate change stress related aspect, right? But there are certain issues, which is the capital constraints, the inadequate policies. But to scale up that, enhancing capabilities and knowledge, bringing in better innovation is important. The next is the UN Water Convention. We already discussed. Ivory Coast became a member of it. So again, we have included it. So this is what we have already covered. The next is the climate change and marginal farmers. Now, the impact has been seen and was published under the Forum for Enterprise for Equitable Development, which talks about the rights of and the welfare of the marginal farmers in terms of extreme weather events, sea level rise, or anything that was not normal, right, within the range. So farmers who have less than 1 hectare are marginal, 1 to 2 hectare are small farmers, and about 10 hectares are classified as large farmers. So with the climate change projection, the annual agricultural income would decrease by 15 to 18%. The impact would be more severe where the areas are unirrigated, and the response to the climate impact would be higher because they are often trying to resort to temporary migration, and therefore this climate smart agriculture becomes important. The next is air pollution and pollinators. Now, air pollution has a great effect on the pollination, which is done by honeybees, butterflies, as compared to the crop destroying pest. So the damage to the pollinators is more, we could say, as compared to the pest. Now, the pollution concerns has been significant in the regions of industries. In the case of forest fires, we recently saw a huge outbreak of forest fire in the regions of California. Even in India across, the issue has remained the same. So the pollinators, even in California, we have seen that the Californian almonds, you have numerous bees which are brought during the pollination season to the regions of California for the pollination of the almonds, as we had discussed in one of the editions of Down to Earth. Now here again, one of the major things that we would understand is, once the penetration takes place, ozone, which is seen as an atmospheric pollutant in the regions of stratosphere, in the regions of the troposphere, is a pollutant, right? And in the stratosphere, it is considered as a good thing because it protects the ultraviolet B rays from coming into the reaching the Earth's surface, right? So now, when pollination becomes crucial and when there is pollution, this creates a huge impact onto the bees, the butterflies, and this creates an impact both when there is a self-pollination as well as a cross-pollination. The next is the megafauna. Now, archaeologists have identified one of the world's oldest known ostrich nest, which is nearly 41,000 year old, and this has been identified in the region of Andhra Pradesh and has become an insight that India was one of the major centers of extinction of the megafaunas. Now, some of the things that have been identified here are woolly mammoths, saber-toothed cats, giant ground sloths, mastodons, and glyptodons, which are giant armadillos. Now, the classification of megafauna actually refers to animals which have weight more than 50 kg, and these animals are either categorized as mega herbivorous, mega omnivorous, or mega carnivorous. And during the late Pleistocene, we have seen that there was a huge pressure on the megafauna and their population significantly declined. The next was the Araku coffee, which was in news in one of the episodes of Man Ki Baat. Now, Araku Arabic coffee is cultivated in the regions of Andhra Pradesh. It has been given a GI tag in 2019 and has been characterized by the region's hot days and cool nights and iron-rich soil, which gives it a specific flavor. The next is EU Nature Restoration Law. Now, this law came officially into effect with the idea of restoring the region. The member states have been working forward for it. The next is the recognition of aquatic deoxygenation. Now, this is a new planetary boundary. This actually refers to the reduction in the amount of oxygen in the oceanic and the coastal waters, where the oxygen consumption is higher than the amount of oxygen which could be replenished, and therefore this is a concerning thing. So approximately 2% of the oxygen content has been lost since 1960s, and 500 low oxygen sites have been identified in the coastal waters. There have been significant decline of 5% or 18% in the lake reservoirs and water bodies for the oxygen content. So the impact has been significant onto the periphery. The next is mangroves. Now, mangroves, as we already said, are important shelter belts to prevent the coastal seas, because they decrease the amount of tides or decrease the intensity of tide entering into the mainland and protect the mainland. So, State of Forest Mangrove Forest 2024 was released, and this was released as part of the Global Mangrove Alliance. The sum of the findings says that Southeast Asia has 1/3 of the world's mangrove. Indonesia alone has 21%. Half of the mangrove provinces are threatened under IUCN classification. In India, we have one of the major mangrove region in Lakshadweep, another in Tamil Nadu, which is critically endangered, and they actually reduce the impact of climate change. There are also shrimp aquaculture, which has been seen in the regions of West Bengal, Gujarat, and Andhra. Mangroves also help in conserving the palm oil plantation, which is done in the periphery. The next is one of the important things, Neelakurinji. Now, Neelakurinji comes from Nilgiris, which is the Blue Mountain, and it is known for its beautiful colors. And this is one of the mountain grasslands which is where it is found in Nilgiris, in the Palani Hills and the Arivakulam Hills in Munnar. It is also found in the Sheveri Hills in Eastern Ghats, and this actually has a major threat due to tea plantation, softwood plantation, native species which are invasive species which are introduced, like black wattle, eucalyptus. But if we talk about Neelakurinji, it has ecological benefits. It is a habitat for wildlife. It has numerous traditional uses. It is an indicator of climate change and has a natural beauty. The next is atmospheric rivers. Now, this topic we have covered extensively in a separate video, so I would request you to go for it. It's a really important topic, specifically for those taking geography optional. So this is the intensification of the amount of jet streams going in, and this is actually called as the flying rivers in the upper atmosphere, ranging from the tropics to the higher latitudes, approximately 2000 kilometers in length, 500 kilometers in width, and they provide a network for extratropical cyclones and help in the movement of moisture and heat. So they are found within the low-level jet areas, as I already mentioned, and therefore are important. The impact has been seen because India's 10 of the most of the monsoon floods are linked to atmospheric rivers, and it increases fog and haze in the Indo-Gangetic Plain areas. It also reduces the albedo in the Hindu Kush Karakoram region, and this leads to higher amount of rainfall and melting of snow in the region. The next is the deepest rock sample from the earth mantle. So from the mantle, rock sample has been identified by the US vessel JOIDES Resolution, and this went nearly 1.2 kilometers below the Atlantis Massif. So in the upper mantle, transition and lower mantle, some of the major rock structures that are seen have been mentioned, and it is important that this vessel was able to transpass, and it conducted its drilling operation under the International Ocean Discovery Program with India as one of its funding partner. The drilling was near the Atlantic Massif, or what is the Lost City Hypothermal Field, and it recovered the sample which was mainly 70% rock which was brought. The next is the Energy Transition Principles by UN. Now, this report is resourcing the energy transition principles to guide the critical energy transition minerals towards equity and justice. A very important report released by UN Secretary. Now, it focuses on the energy transition minerals, which are mainly the rare earth minerals utilized for solar energy, and these rare earth minerals are copper, cobalt, nickel, graphite, cadmium, selenium. And when we are shifting from fossil fuels to renewable sources, the demand for this critical energy transition metal, which is CETMs, have increased significantly. Now, again, they are concentrated into few pockets. Every country do not have abundant resources for the CETMs, and it has again created a geopolitical controversies and issues. So there are 7 principles which align to it for the energy transition principles. These are important. You can check them in the handouts. Again, the next important topic that we would discuss is integrated development of wildlife habitat. Now, this topic basically talks about an approach for the centrally sponsored schemes to integrate integrated development of wildlife habitat, and this focuses on protecting the elephant corridors, addressing the man-elephant conflict, and welfare of domestic elephants under the Project Elephant. There have been various species which have been identified under the Species Recovery Program. Initiatives have been taken for critically endangered species separately, and then there are different projects. So one was Project Elephant, the other is Project Tiger, there is Project Cheetah, Project Lion as some of those, Project Dolphin as another. So all of these projects are a subset of this integrated development of wildlife habitat. The next is biodiversity credit. Now, when we talk about the diversity, we understand it in terms of genetic, species and ecosystem or community diversity. We have covered that extensively in our class on ecosystems, so refer that for more details and information. The next one is greening of Antarctica. Now, Antarctica, due to climate crisis, has seen rising temperature, and as a result, the snow levels are going down. The temperatures are increasing to about 3 degrees, which could lead to growth of mosses, lichens and other grasses in isolated spots. With warmer temperature, there could be longer growing seasons and higher rainfall, reduction in the sea level, in the ice level, leading to rise in the sea level. So both of these go hand in hand. So again, some of the important things that we have discussed under this topic. So this was your end for the environment. In the next lecture, we would come up with international relations as another important topics of discussion. So stay tuned, do subscribe. Thanks for joining in.